Good morning and welcome back to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy, Seth, and Mike. Good morning, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Right?
I think it's Turkey Day today.
Happy Turkey Day.
Why are we so confused, Mike?
Well, this is a recorded episode. People are traveling and doing things around holidays and things. Build has recently happened, so we recorded some of those episodes. And now it's the week of Thanksgiving, and we're recording these episodes as well. We're recording this a bit early, so we don't know what happened at Ignite. And I'm hoping
Not
Tommy...
build, Ignite.
Ignite.
You guys were just at Ignite.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Ignite. Tommy and I were at Ignite.
And we had a great time.
We had a great time. It was super fun. Except for that one time Tommy did that thing that was very dangerous.
I was going to say that one time that you did that thing. I was going to say
yeah, you know, we should.
Yeah, we
that was so funny.
Yeah.
I was talking about future events. That's funny. All right. That being said, this episode is going to be kind of a short, quick episode. We're just getting a quick recording here for this one. But let's just jump right into our main topic. We can start discussing. We've been kind of doing this little mini series around like citizen developer tools, things that the business gets and can build things with. Our last episode was around a bit more conversation around data marts and the citizen developer. This one we're thinking will be a little bit more around, let's cater towards desktop. Is desktop changing from what it used to be to what it is becoming with the recent announcements that Microsoft has been producing around kind of some major changes around desktop? And even the file formats of like Power BI and files that we typically work with, things are becoming very different, I think, in this world. So let's jump in there. Tommy, give us a couple like maybe starting point thoughts or questions here, and then we'll take it from there for a little bit.
Yeah, and I think one big thing I'm realizing as we get more mailbag questions and we hear back from a lot of users is I think we're underestimating citizen developers. I think we have an assumption, and I know I do, where it's like, well, you can just turn everything on. You probably are using all the new features that come out as soon as they come out, but a lot of people have limitations, whether it's the team, whether it's the organization they're in, tenant level settings that are turned on or off. I would say a majority of people are probably not at the forefront of a lot of the products, features, and tools and skill sets that are available to them. So with that being said, I think there's a lot of not just the BI team and the centralized team, which is a core for a lot of us, but there are a lot of people going, look, I do Power BI a lot, but I don't get the abilities and all the feature sets. So I have to kind of hack things together. I have to be a little creative in my solutions. And I think that's a great place for what we'll call that citizen developer set.
I'm not sure that's how we define or how Microsoft would define the citizen developer. I think your definition is a little different than what I feel like I've heard in the past. Let me just give you what I've heard, and maybe Seth, you can maybe weigh in here about what you think is a citizen developer as well. I think that what they're trying to communicate around citizen developer is anyone anywhere in the organization can pick up Power BI and utilize it. I'm going to say this term, I use it a lot, democratizing data, right? It's making data and report building a commodity, right? Excel isn't a commodity in your organization. If everyone doesn't have Excel, no one's productive, right? It's kind of one of those mentalities they want to get to. And I think they're trying to do the same thing for bringing data together and merging it. And I mean, if you imagine, in my mind, citizen developers are already doing this in Excel today. They're grabbing different data sources, they're exporting them, they're shaping them, they're moving the data around. All we've been given recently has been a Power BI tool, or a tool that works well with Power Query and other things, easily manipulating that data, shaping it, designing it, and then putting it in a place where we can reuse it. I think that's what they're trying to go for. I don't think it really matters about like whether or not you're using the latest features or not.
I think that's what they're going for. Okay. So you disagree with the description of what a citizen developer is, because what is the
I think it's more general than what Tommy gave.
So
I think a citizen developer is anyone who puts their hands on desktop or Excel is what I would, maybe it's a better way of quantifying. I'm literally thinking out loud. I'm unpacking the idea as we go here. I think I just disagree with all the latest features of things.
Sure.
I think anything citizen developer, you're still a citizen developer if you're ripping Power Query from SharePoint and doing stuff and making things happen on your own.
Yeah.
I would not call you a citizen developer for doing that, but have we, are we shifting a little bit more now? Like, hey, instead of having just SharePoint and flat files be your source of data, well, now it could be a SQL server. Well, now you can give citizen developers more access to bigger tools.
See, but this is where I start agreeing with Tommy.
Okay.
Right? And I think you're getting if you're getting hung up on like turn on all the features, right? The other part of that was there are certain limitations as far as like not having access to some of the enterprise-ish features that you're talking about.
Not going to disagree. Not going to disagree.
So I guess where I go is I think a developer doesn't give a rip about infrastructure.
No, or dev test prod. It's just everything needs to work.
So a lot of our conversations, a lot of what Fabric offers, I think, moves towards more scalable and larger implementations, and that isn't always, but could be part of a citizen developer. But I would argue, like, what is the difference between, or what is there a goal difference between a citizen developer and a BI professional or somebody on a central team?
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I think I have a little bias to in the definition because the term citizen developer doesn't come from the data platform. It actually comes from the business application platform with Microsoft. They consider anyone who uses Canvas apps or Power Automate the citizen developer. That's actually where the terminology
Seriously?
Yeah, which I'm not really a big fan of that terminology. Now, if you're doing the modeling and you're doing the actual, you can actually do dev and VS Code with Power Apps, that to them is a developer. But if I'm just building a Canvas app, I'm a citizen developer, which I don't agree with that terminology. I don't like that terminology, but that's, our Minecraft. But
I'm the villager now. I'm the villager.
And so I think that's where the bias is coming
comment.
from. So, it's someone who there's standard tooling available to them, but it's kind of just that. It's just the standard thing where people have to make and mash a lot of things together.
But okay, so
yeah,
just because somebody is using the tool set that they are doesn't mean that they always have to stick there. I think there's a mix of folks that can't move on, like we talked about previously, where it's like, hey, you're all these features are turned off, I have no other option.
Yeah.
Versus why I brought up, like, I think the goal, right? Like the goals of what I would term a citizen business intelligence developer are to get to the data fast, like the insights fast.
Yeah.
It's all about like, okay, somebody sent me this spreadsheet. I have to go comb through it. I have to do the analysis and I have to give out this answer quickly. It's not about doing that in a scalable way where somebody else can use my output. You know what I'm saying?
I'm 100%. That's, if we were to do the definition today, what you just said, Seth, is exactly where I would place my same definition.
So because, and maybe this is where it goes into the what you pointed out earlier with features. Like we talk about them a lot because they'll enhance solutions. But if they've already found, like, how many people are using Power BI up to the point where it's meeting all of their needs and they don't go beyond that, nor do they care, right? Because that's what, like, you're doing your analysis, you're producing what you need to produce, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I used to get so frustrated my first two companies because something would be out or available, but I didn't have the permissions to do it. Like it was like an API call to Power App or some things would.
But you're the people you would be the person we're talking to all the time then.
Exactly.
Degree, right?
Yeah.
Because you're learning about all the new things that we're saying.
But I couldn't do it. I couldn't use it. I would have to buy my own tenant to do so. Like I wanted to, but I had no ability to do so. I would have to start my own company, which I did. But beforehand, you're just kind of at the whims of your IT team.
So I feel like calling someone a citizen developer based on the access they have doesn't do it justice. And maybe I'm having maybe where I'm having a heartburn here is I think actually there's different levels of people like, let's call them content creators or creators of content or data content that's inside your organization. Sure. I don't really like how Microsoft has designed the personas that are inside the Power BI ecosystem. I think I take a different approach. And maybe my different approach of the different personas that we're talking about aligns better with what I would call a citizen developer. So let me just throw some stuff out.
Yeah.
A citizen developer is not someone who is a report consumer. A report consumer just looks at reports that someone else has built, period. They get them from an app. They get them from a workspace. That's what they're doing. A report builder is someone who has used a model that someone else may have built or does some lightweight modeling on their own and builds their own report for whatever they need their report to be doing. That could be like in a team or a department level person, right? Then we have what I would call the data modeler. And I'm going to kind of blend the data modeler and data engineer into the same role. I know those are traditionally two different roles, but I think the skills of the data modeler person for building semantic models, making the star schema, getting the data in, making sure it's correct, those are very similar to what I would call a data engineer. So I'm going to call data engineer and data modeler the same person, just because I feel like a lot of the skills are transferable and kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Then there's the data scientist. And then there's someone maybe like the PM or the management team that's like release manager. And they're working on, okay, we have things that, and again, some organizations have it. Not every organization needs a release manager, but that's someone who's in control of who's building what in dev and making sure that the things, the artifacts, move between dev, test, and prod into the various parts of the organization. I think these roles fit in all scenarios, whether you're talking about just pure Power BI, whether you're talking about Fabric and using data warehousing and lake houses and all the stuff in the back end. I think these roles fit more aligned to my analogy. I would then say part of that data modeler person could be a citizen developer. The report builder could be a citizen developer. But I would argue when we have people hard pushing into data engineering and data science roles, those are not citizen developers. They're skilled in that area, and we're not bringing someone or people that maybe have come from the business into that space. So that's kind of maybe it's probably like a spectrum that we're talking about here, and that's kind of how I see it.
I don't think I agree with any of that.
Really?
No.
So you're just okay. So what do you don't? Go ahead.
Like, see, because that's still that's still part of the structured play that the arena we play in all the time, where you would assume those roles and responsibilities are part of developing something. What I would, whether you
agree if they're there or not, I think they're there regardless.
Well, I mean,
it may be one person.
Could somebody to your point, could a data engineer, somebody who's always playing in data, be considered a citizen developer because they're using parts of Power BI? Right. Well, I mean, even then, they know a lot more than I would say no. Developer does.
I would say
pure
developer.
Like a citizen developer to me would be somebody that comes from the business, is an old Mike Carlo that only worked in Excel all the time. You know data. You analyze, like the person analyzes data on a daily basis. They're all up in the guts of Excel sometimes with calculations and like the 900 tabs, etc. Like these were the people that never knew Power Query existed, right? Because it was infrastructure, it was scalable, it was, like a process. These are the people that are like doing the manual thing all the time, and then they find Power BI. Nothing
Power Query.
Like and hope so you've hopefully graduated to Power Query, the desktop, right? Like that experience. I can create my calculations now, not just in Excel. I can share this report out to a wider audience, and I can automate some things. And why am I doing all this? Because I've found that there's a ton of value in the automation of this.
Yes.
I can create the transformations once and get repeatable expected outcomes.
Yes.
And I can share with a wider audience. The reason I did all this was because I'm on the hook for reports, or I'm on the hook for answers out of an analysis. It's all the meaning behind data, right? It's the value of the answer that is important to the citizen developer. They're just in these tools because they recognize that they can do what they need to do in terms of analysis and getting the answer faster.
And that's where I'm going to lean too, because I'm
going to argue real quick.
Okay.
You just described for me the citizen developer, which I would also argue is that data modeler and that report builder persona. That is the person, and that's what we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. So because I don't think the first time you open a data flow, your title changes.
I think we're saying the same stuff.
Okay. I think we're saying the same thing. So yeah. And one thing I just want to quickly add to that, I think
I like your points though.
Yeah, I agree. The citizen developer is not necessarily distinct from those, right? They're someone who they're not on the streamline. They're a local radio station. They're not national. They're doing solutions for a team, right? No, but seriously, they're the kind of things
they're Bears fans. That's what it is. They're Bears fans.
Yeah, right. But they're
not a Packers fan.
More local. They're not streamlined, but they could use the same tools.
Right.
All Packers fans are professional developers. high quality
Dude, I know. Listen,
expert. All the
all
Bears
of us,
fans are
we're
like
trying to write Power Query in
barely
the
a
DAX
citizen
formula
developer.
bar.
Barely a citizen developer.
The Chicago Bears fan in this equivalent is trying to write Power Query in the DAX formula bar.
Don't even get me started about Yankee fans. They're probably like even lower on the
All
totem.
right, all right.
They're Tableau lovers. They're Tableau lovers.
We can end this podcast right now.
This is it, guys. This is my last. Thank you all. We've appreciated it. We've done 376 episodes. There is no more episodes. Tommy is out. It's it. He's done. You've pressed the Yankee button. We're done here.
Yeah. It's too soon. There's still some mornings.
There's still pain. There's still heart there. Tommy, are you going to therapy yet? Is therapy started? Has that begun?
I'm talking to my son, and he's 4.
I'm talking to my son. So you're going to bring the scars to your children. I see how this works. You're bringing the generational scars.
100%.
The World Series. I'm showing him Derek Jeter, and Derek Jeter hasn't played for 15 years. I'm like, this is the guy. Don't watch out with these guys. Anyways, we're getting started. But
right.
Okay, so I think we're on the same page. Citizen developer can cross all these skill sets.
Yes,
and touch a lot of those tools, but again, they're not part of the streamline.
So let's talk about the tool we were going to talk about today, which was like desktop.
Thought we were going to say that for next week, but that's okay.
Oh, I thought we were doing that today.
Okay.
Today,
okay. So,
I think we did citizen developer stuff. I mean, this makes sense. But now we're like, okay, so what is the tool of the citizen developer, and how does desktop fit into that? I guess is what I was going to maybe lead it. So I think we've defined very clearly what a citizen developer is.
Yeah.
Let's now step into what does desktop mean for that developer.
So I know where you stand, Mike, and I'm seeing your point a lot more than I did before because. Well, Mike first hates desktop. We know that since episode.
I don't hate it.
Episode
it has
1.
Its place.
Well, I think we should do this in the cloud, and then it happened.
There's limitations. I'll just say there's limitations in desktop that doesn't give me like what I feel from a developer standpoint. It doesn't give me what I really want to do, and it's becoming much easier to do things in desktop. So I'm also of the opinion that Microsoft can make changes to the website faster than they can make changes to the desktop. You're going to probably get multiple changes to the website, improvements, fixes, bug fixes. They're continually pushing out new things, as opposed to desktop, which gets like 2, maybe 3 releases a month.
Do you write your reports in the service now?
I write them in my theme generator tool because they're so much faster there. So,
I have to keep rolling my eyes.
Keep rolling. Tommy keeps rolling.
It's going to take a little for this one.
Well,
but seriously though, if you are building a report for a client, are you building the model and then going straight to the service? I don't think so.
I'm getting
be honest.
Less and less am I going to desktop. Let me just say that. So I'm still using desktop for things that I need, but the service has what I need more in like the lake house and the tables that I need. So I'm doing more. Let me see. I'm starting my workflow pattern is I'm doing more in the lake house. I'm doing more with notebooks. I've kind of walked away from Power Query.
Yeah.
Desktop doesn't get me Power Query or doesn't get me notebooks. So I don't have that there for one. So all of my data engineering exercises are no longer in desktop, and I'm building direct lake tables, and I'm going directly from direct lake tables into a semantic model, which I start in the service. So already I've taken out a good part of the data engineering work and just do it in the service. That's on window number 1. Window number 2 is I'm building a couple simple measures. And now I'm using DAX Query View in the service to say, Copilot, make me some measures or turn all of my number columns.
Bye, Mike.
I don't think Microsoft liked at all his comment.
Yeah, they reached into the stream and were just like, beep.
So for those of you
think again, Mike. Yeah.
Mike is no longer here. For those of you watching, oh, good. I don't know if we're live still because Mike is in control of the stream. So
that was
Microsoft
just said you have a problem and just said stop. So it came back. I think
at least we kept going. Yeah, we were.
Is it still going? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I kept talking for you.
Okay, thank you, Tommy. Blah, blah, blah. And then Mike says he hates the service and he said he's only going to use the desktop.
We said Microsoft turned you off apparently for restream.
We actually did.
That's funny.
I did not care for that comment.
Sorry, I didn't. I think I'll try and pick up the last part of the thought here. The last thought was now that I can make the tables and get the semantic model made in the service, I'm now using DAX Query View in the service. And I believe it was announced Tyndall Editor is also coming to desktop. So that'll be something that's coming out. I imagine that will also come into the service eventually at some point. So it'll match there. One more reason to not have to edit the model in the local machine. I can do all the definition editing in the service. So the last part of this whole thing is I need to build reports. And I will also argue many of my reports have become much simpler. I'm doing less bookmarking. I'm doing a lot less things with it. So I'm using now other third-party tools to help me get like a nice looking report done, backgrounds, images, theme files. It's faster to not do those. You can't do those in desktop anyways. You can't build a theme file in desktop. It just doesn't work.
Well, you can technically.
I mean, I don't know how you do it easily.
Not to the levels that you can in other tools.
I
Right?
understand.
And that's fair. But so Mike, do you touch the desktop at all?
I do.
Like
I still
what
do.
What percentage of time?
That's a great question. I would probably say about 40% of the time, maybe 30% now. It's been slowly, it used to be like 70, 80%, and now it's slowly been working further and further back. Ask me how much I touch Power Query, 10% of the time now.
Really?
I'm almost never touching Power Query.
I haven't for a long time, but that's because, to your point, you're doing a lot more of your data engineering behind the scenes.
Well,
agree.
So I would.
Go ahead.
It is, and that's why I'm making the point of, if there is somebody who would want to walk away from the desktop as fast as possible and is all in on Fabric, right?
Mhm.
Because you're building your ecosystem out, you're already in that platform.
Correct.
It makes a ton of sense to just continue on and build everything in that platform rather than go back to a local tool. So if cutting edge is Mike and he's at 30%, right? I think that is one scenario. You
Agreed.
could get to a point where
100%.
you're almost desktop free.
Yes,
if you
almost
wanted
there.
to be.
Yes.
But it's important, I think, to also say, like, that's for an all in on Fabric, all in on Power BI.
Totally
scenario.
agree with you there. Yes.
Where I think desktop still does make sense. Well, I mean, obviously, it still makes sense in your realms too. But
Yeah.
where you're using different platforms. You're still, Power BI is still the encompasses the connection, the model, the report that you're publishing.
All the things.
And I still agree, and especially you'll find as you get into more central BI teams, et cetera, that
Mhm.
a lot of the ETL won't be in those reports anymore.
No.
Right? You're literally just connecting to your back end facts and dimensions, pulling them in
Yes.
and connecting them.
Yep.
So
Agreed.
the only thing is that you're enhancing in the desktop versus what you're doing is more of that is
Thin
the
report
model,
building.
the model stuff under
Yeah.
the covers, which would be, kind of you're in the desktop, you deploy the model, right? And then you create another file that is the reports, and then you're building thin reports on that. So you're managing the model more in the desktop experience than
Yes.
which is managing in that ecosystem, I think.
And everything you just said, I feel like leans towards the citizen developer more, even though the Power BI. Hold on. Power BI,
I would argue. Go ahead.
yeah, Power BI Desktop has all the developer features now. We know that the files, TIMDL, PBIR. However,
and you can live edit. I want to point out you can also live edit models in the service with desktop. So that's a live. I mean, so now you're not even editing on local computers. You're actually editing the model in the service with your desktop, which is awesome.
It's awesome, dude. But that being said, the citizen developer, we made some assumptions. They're using some of the same tools, but they probably don't have a lakehouse or a database that they're able to access and they're going to manage. So Power Query is probably going to be their most utilized tool.
Could be.
I remember the days of being that mid citizen developer, and they have to put together data where they don't have access to actually push data to. Mike, I'm leaning to you when it comes to a lot of my reusable data. I'm not using Power Query as much. I'm pushing to the Fabric. I'm pushing the Lakehouse.
Yep.
I'm utilizing that more and more than ever, and I love it. But
it's a great experience.
I'm not a citizen developer,
Yeah.
and it's my data.
I would agree with you. I would agree with 100% agree with you.
Yeah, and I would say I would think Power Query is probably the most used tool of a citizen.
100%. Yes. Every business user we talk to is when we come to Fabric, they're like, "Where's my Power Query?" And I'm like, "You know what? It's had some challenges. It's got some family issues going on right now. I would recommend let's go talk to notebook families, and we're gonna introduce you to a new tool that I think you're gonna love."
Dude, I every time we bring this up, a citizen developer is not going to go from Power Query to Notebook learning a new language.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how fast I'm converting people these days. It's not that large of a jump. And now that I'm showing, I actually just did a class on Data Wrangler, and Data Wrangler was really slick. It does a lot of things that Power Query does. and it helps out when you don't know how to write code. It helps out a lot there. I would argue that, so maybe you're right, Tommy. Maybe Notebooks isn't the best place for a citizen developer, but I guarantee you, if those citizen developers are writing complex formulas or VBA and Excel sheets, and again, I think there's a lot of people out there doing those things. There's a lot of people really comfortable in like that type of space. I don't think it's a very large jump to go from that into Notebooks because they're easy to understand, they're easy to get through, but you need to learn. Again, it's like learning a handful of functions the same way you did in Excel, and the functions work well, and it's pretty smooth moving forward. But again, I'll also argue there's a Fabric thing. Sorry, go ahead.
There is a point to that, though, because if you think about folks that are heavy Excel users, they are building the
databases
code,
in Excel,
the code to do this stuff, right? And what happens to Power Query? You just gave them an interface. They would still have to learn M.
Yeah, and
right?
they slowly do anyways.
To do the most advanced stuff, you absolutely need to get into the advanced editor, right? So at the same time, it's like, is it that far of a stretch to say, hey, okay, here's the interface in a notebook. So. You now have infinite capability as opposed to guardrails or things you can and can't do in Power Query.
Yep.
Right. In terms of transforms, like here's the library of functions you can go look at. Here's a Copilot that helps you write the code. Like,
I mean, Copilot's removing friction here. I think that's another great win.
If you're using the GitHub,
if you spend a lot of money, you can use Copilot. So that's another. But I imagine this though, like, so notebooks are easy to understand. They're very cell-based block information. I think it fits very well with the Excel mindset. Hey, I'm going to do some transformations of something, and I'm going to spit out a table I need to see. I can see the data as I'm building it. I think that's very clear. It feels very Power Query to me in some level. Yes, it's a little bit different. You're writing a bit more code. There's a little bit more syntax issues there. But is it that far away from writing Excel functions? I don't think so. Is it that far away from using Power Query and then seeing the formula bar? People edit the formula bar now. Like every Power Query I've ever seen, everyone has the formula bar up. Guarantee you.
That's not makes it advanced. And I'm not trying to say that if you just use some code, that you can easily put Python. I love the notebook experience. I'm totally sold on it. But that being said, I think we'll use Chuck Sterling, who said this, that 90% of what you need to accomplish in Power Query can be done with the user interface. That other 10%.
Gilbert
Raviv.
Yeah. Because he was talking about like, hey, if you need to do like 80% of your work can always be done with just the UI. It's the last 20 or 10% that's like, okay, if you want to do advanced things, like get a token, make an API call, like those things are just clunky. It just doesn't work well.
Is a citizen developer going to find their way to that on their own without Mike Carlo? No, they're not.
And
they
then
will.
they're probably not
We're going to listen to the Explicit Measures podcast. They're going to hear Tommy and Mike argue about it. They're going to be like, this is a great idea. We should do this.
Continue this. I am loving this. But and I'll argue too, if you're doing VBAs and you're doing advanced stuff, you're probably spending more time. You probably know some other languages too. So Python, you're right. It's probably not a big jump at that point. But to the definition that we have outlined here today of a citizen developer, again, who is not spending all of their time in the tooling, and that's not their main job. They're they're local. I mean, let's go back to desktop too here, where again, Power Query is probably their number one friend. The notebook, maybe they would love that experience, but probably not available to them because again,
Power BI desktop for life.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that sounds like a t-shirt right there.
Power BI, Power BI desktop's not going. Power BI desktop's not going anywhere.
No, it's not going.
It is I would say the preferred tool and the tool that you've brought a whole lot of people onto.
Yeah.
And until that experience has the clarity and parity in the service, right? I don't think you're going to get a mass migration into it. I think you potentially could get there faster if your organization's adopting Fabric, right?
Yeah,
and you're starting to utilize a lot more of those tools, which those opportunities are now on the horizon, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
But for the populace, the larger percent of citizen developers, they're all in desktop, and I think that's where they're going to stay still for quite a while.
Let's wrap up with some final thoughts here. So my final thought is desktop has gotten extremely bloated in size. It is now a 500 megabyte downloadable file that has a bunch of stuff. Great. There's a lot of things there. But if I go to a browser, I have nothing to install, nothing to load. It's always up to date. So I take that for what you will. I don't know, but I am enjoying the browser experience. I think my opinion is desktop is moving more towards developers. If anything, I'm seeing more features in desktop show up that are pure code, DAX Query View and Tyndall Editor. So if nothing else, you're going to get more code in your face when you use desktop. It's coming. It's happening. So be ready for it. So I think they're going to continue to push you more towards a citizen developer anyways, regardless with desktop. It for sure is a dev tool, in my opinion. Tommy, to you?
No, and I think that's where our conversation is going to continue. Is Power BI a dev tool? And I want to have that conversation personally, because I think we're getting to a point, Mike, where we really are needing to have this conversation. Where I'm still doing training a ton when it comes to dashboard a day for people who, when I ask them from 1 to 10 where you're at, they say 0.5. But we're learning Power BI desktop. Yep. And there's still a reason for that. So I want to have that conversation, but I loved where we went today.
So, any other final thoughts you'd add in there, or things you're gonna tell me I'm wrong about?
Desktop for life was.
I think that's it.
Where I ended. Yeah.
There's a little heart symbol, a little. Okay, so for those of you online, I'm doing a little heart. Heart for desktop. Heart for desktop.
I don't think I could do that. I need to see if my son's alive, actually. So.
Okay. He's watching TV. He's good. It's all right. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time today. Good conversation. Lots of disagreement, which is good because that makes for great shows and great TV. I like the arguing, so that's good. But thank you very much. We really appreciate your ears and your time. We know your time is valuable. Sorry it was a little bit shorter today. This was totally Michael's fault. I will take the blame for this one. I screwed up the scheduling of things, so I apologize. This is my fault while it's short. You can blame me on Twitter later on. I will totally ignore it. Don't worry about it. And then with that said, if you liked this podcast, if you like what we're talking about here, please share with somebody else, either on social media or talk about it at work. We would love you to continue this discussion in your organization and kind of unpack it, figure out how it works best for your company and your team. Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
You can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It helps us out a ton. Share with a friend, since we do this for free. If you have a question, idea, or a topic that you want us to talk about in a future episode, head over to Power BI Tips/podcast, leave your name and a great question. And finally, join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. and join the conversation on all Power BI Tips social media channels.
On most days. And when they're not recorded. You know, it kind of happens. Holidays are just a little off. You know, just be aware. It's okay. See you all next time.